sign or symbol. Today we welcome 4 of our young people to publicly engage in the sacrament of the altar. They don't know something the rest of us don't know. They haven't been given some sort of secret. They come because it's a gift. They're in 5th grade. It's strictly an arbitrary decision. As one of the wisest people here said, you've got to draw the line somewhere. It was a decision made back in the 60s. I know, I was there. To separate the process of affirmation or confirmation, whatever you called it, and the sacrament of the altar. To make one not look as the prize for the other. To remove the cloud of works righteousness that somehow one must earn their way to the altar. But it's simply sign or symbol. For the vast majority of Christianity, it's symbol. The bread represents, stands for Christ's body. The wine stands for Christ's blood. And then we have the other side of that equation, those who believe that in the words of institution they are somehow magically changed. Luther rejected all of that. Luther simply said what Jesus said. This is my body. This is my blood. And in that process, it creates the faith which allows us to discern Christ's presence. It is. Sign. An easy way, I suppose, to make this point is, would you rather have a symbol of spring or a sign of spring? A symbol would be a picture of a field covered in beautiful flowers. A sign would be a flower breaking through the last crust of snow, blooming forth on its journey toward the sun. Sign, symbol. And it really does boil down to that. Are we sign people or symbol people? Either of our texts for today will be something that we could literally spend weeks plowing through. So rich are they. And they draw us into this very dichotomy of sign and symbol. But the first thing we have to understand about Scripture is Scripture has this marvelous ability to call us out. The most poignant story of that is when Nathan confronts King David. King David, who had an illicit affair with Bathsheba, sent her husband to the front to be killed so he could take her into his household. And the prophet Nathan goes to David. He doesn't give David a tongue lashing. He doesn't wiggle his finger at David. No, he tells King David a story. There was a farmer who had many sheep, and another farmer who had but one. And the farmer with many, so driven by greed, came and stole the one. And of course, David's anger is kindled. He says, as king, this man shall die. Until Nathan says, you are that man. Sometimes it's that pointed, other times it's much more subtle. But it calls us out. In Micah, we find those words which are very familiar to us. What does the Lord require of thee? But to do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with our God. And we hear those words, we go, a Jewish theologian said that's the center of their gospel. He said everything else is commentary. But Micah's not giving them some cliche they can put up on their walls. No, he's calling them out. If you paid close attention to the beginning of that reading, it's a courtroom setting. God is upset with his people, imploring them to make their case. Is this what I require? Sacrifices. Thousands of rams, tens of thousands. Jugs of oil, no. This is what I require. Do justice. Love kindness. Walk humbly with your God. Micah's calling them out. Because they were symbol people. Not sign people. The same is true for the piece in Matthew. Jesus, at the very beginning of his public ministry, goes up onto a rise, and he sits down. And that's important in the text. He sits down because that's when one is speaking officially. In the Latin, it's called ex cathedra, from the chair. That's why in academia, we call those who head the departments the chairs. Doesn't mean they're a chair. It means they occupy that position of authority. When the Pope speaks officially, he always speaks sitting down. And so Jesus sits down in the rabbinic tradition and he begins to teach. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. And the people around Jesus are getting into this. They're going, yeah, blessed are the poor. Yeah, blessed are those who mourn. Yeah, blessed are those who are meek. Yeah, blessed are all those folks. But what they're really saying is, blessed are the poor, just as long as I'm not poor. Blessed are the meek, but I'm not going to turn the other cheek. Blessed are those who mourn, just as long as it ain't me mourning. Blessed are the peacemakers, but I'll keep my big stick. Sign. Simple. Last week we celebrated the life that was Betty. The place was filled. I heard the marvelous stories of Betty. I was moved by that. Betty was truly a sign person. But about a week before that, there was another death. Someone you probably don't know. But he was a big shot in the formation of what was then the ELCA. He was a big shot. The first bishop. He too died. And I'm certain at that funeral they were talking about what a marvelous man he was. I'm sure by the time they were done, you'd have swore he walked on water. Well, I got a letter, an email. Nobody mails things. From one of those Betty-like people, a gal by the name of Karen. One of those true sign people. And she said, I read his obituary, and it brought back up all of the hurt, all of the anger. See, he had been a pastor at their church. He was then elected in the LCA to another position. And he recommended someone. He said, oh, this is a great guy. And the congregation trusted him. Oh. But what he failed to mention was that this man had a dark side. He had been terribly unfaithful to his wife on numerous occasions. And at first she said it was good. He was charismatic. Preached good sermons. Sort of the antithesis of me. But then he did it again. He got caught. Tore the congregation apart. The former pastor, who was now a big shot in the church, came in, tried to soothe it over, tried to convince the congregation that maybe just with a little counseling, and love and support. So they again followed his advice. And after a short period of time, he returned, only to do it again. And so while he was being certainly celebrated, and he did many wonderful and marvelous things, there was just a few miles from that celebration a church whose doors are now shut, destroyed. And she said over all of the decades, never once have these people who she thought were her friends. This man's wife had been in the delivery room when she delivered her first child. Never once did they ever call and say, I'm sorry. And so in responding to Karen, I simply gave her some of the lines of a song. And the song is a calling out of the church. It's written by an evangelical pastor. And in that song, it talks about how he went to the services, how he clung to the old rugged cross, only to discover that the very church did not live the words that they had put in his mouth. And so there's a refrain that says, I was told to love the lost, and so I'm loving you now. I was told to speak the truth, and so I'm calling you out. The scriptures call us out. Challenge us ask us whether we will be symbol people who will speak all the right words, say all of the right things. But at the same time leave the sheep's right to the wolves. Or are we going to be sign people? People who truly live the words of man. I'd take one Betty. I would take one Karen over a whole busload of clergy. Sign people who live the very words they speak. And there's one way of telling the difference. Symbol people are always willing to tell me about how strong their faith is. They're always willing to tell me all about this Jesus. They're always willing to share with me a whole wide variety of biblical quotes. And in this process, I've always struggled with, are they trying to convince me or them? Sign people. They'll simply give you Jesus. Give me Jesus. A couple of weeks ago, I shared a story about a man who was being dumped in the river. They kept asking if he found Jesus. Well, I would have said, Jesus isn't lost. You want to find Jesus? Look to your right and left. Look behind you and in front of you. You found Jesus. We are called not to talk about Jesus. We are called to be Jesus to the world. Don't give me your platitudes. Give me Jesus. Don't give me your biblical quotes. Give me Jesus. And so it's appropriate that today we welcome these marvelous and incredible young people to our life. Because our job is not to make them more like us. Our job is to make us more like you. To be inspired by your innocence. To be empowered by your wide-eyed faith. That's our job. It's not to make them like us. It's for us to become like them. Sign people. Just give me Jesus.